On March 23, 2023, news website Insider published an article titled Gen Zers are bookworms, but say they're shunning ebooks because of eye strain, digital detoxing, and their love for libraries. In the article, they discuss how recent studies have shown that Gen Zers, otherwise known as people born between the late 90s and early 2010s, God, that makes me feel old, seem to rather heavily prefer traditional physical books over digital ebooks. And from the attitude it presents Gen Z of having, you would think that Gen Z outright rejects ebooks entirely, wary of some of the pitfalls of digital platforms. While the article received some criticism over its portrayal of Gen Z and its misinterpretation of some of its discussed articles, that's not what I want to talk about today. The article makes a notable point that ebooks only make up a fraction of the book sales compared to physical books. And while this is true, I feel like it doesn't really encapsulate all the digital platforms that Gen Z does read on. Wattpad, fanfiction websites like Archive of Our Own, certain less scrupulous sites, and of course, the increasingly popular Webtoon. Okay, so that opening is a little misleading. While I'm focusing a bit more on Webtoon, I'm generally referring to comic reader apps like Webtoon, Tapas, TappyToon, and the like. It should be noted that Webtoon is the app, while Webtoons are a digital comic medium originating in South Korea. But first, a little context. As noted in places like John B. Thompson's book, Merchants of Culture, otherwise known as this book, when ebooks were first introduced, they were lauded as a whole new frontier for book selling, a digital revolution of sorts, and the potential death of physical printed books. While this didn't really end up happening at all, actually, ebooks are still a popular resource amongst both major and independent publishers for their cost efficiency. They don't require any of the expensive printer costs seen in traditional printed books, and because they're digital, they are otherwise cheap to produce and distribute, so publishing houses are looking to almost entirely profit off of ebooks. This is especially true amongst both small and self-publishers, as they can now more accessibly publish and sell their own books. Apps like Webtoon, then, are supposedly a step further at making it easier for authors to digitally publish their own works. However, are these programs more accessible? I would say yes, they are, definitely. But are they easier? Not necessarily. It should also be noted that the programs being discussed here today are comic-based, while more textually based programs like Kindle Unlimited and Wattpad may provide similar services to authors, but with specific differences that I'm unable to go into depth here today. Okay, but how do Webtoons work? And what is Webtoon the app? Webtoon is a South Korean-based company focused on curating compact digital comics. While Webtoon and apps like it typically focus on making comics, some apps like Tapas also have options for text-based writers. How these apps work is pretty simple. You have a whole catalog of comics and stories which you can mostly read for free. Webtoons themselves can be broadly split between two categories: app-curated and creator-curated. App-curated works, or as Webtoon calls them, their Webtoon originals, are exclusive works that are paid, edited, and curated directly by Webtoon and its staff. It also means that the license for these stories is held by the company itself, but we'll talk a bit more about that later. Creator-curated works, or Webtoon Canvas, are works independently curated by individual creators and make money off of ad revenue and audience engagement. The latter form of Webtoon is particularly noteworthy for potential new creators and authors, as it allows them to get their work out there without the proctoring seen in traditional publishing. No need for book proposals, no publishers you need to impress. All you need to do is seemingly just create and post. All the other stuff is supposedly just extra. Not only that, but if creator-curated works become popular enough, they might even be given a chance to partner with the app itself and create app-curated works. And as for readers, they now have a seemingly endless library of works to read, both app and creator-curated. Now, this sounds great and all, but I had a feeling that there was more to Webtoon than just what traditional research would offer me. I had to go out there into the field. And by field, I mean attend Toronto Comic Con holding a big sign that read, "Can I ask you about Webtoons?" And yes, this actually worked. I also managed to score an interview with artist and blacksmith Off Balance Art to quickly talk to him about his experiences writing his new comic, Clouds, on to Pass.
All right. My name is Quinn Arthur. I go by the handle Off Balance Art. I do a mix of mediums between some illustration work, comic books, and story boarding is the predominant form that I work on with illustrations. A lot of character design and some digital colors on traditional lines. I try to do a sort of a blend on the illustration side for that. On the other side of things, I do blacksmithing work and artisan metalsmith.
One of the hottest topics right now regarding Webtoons as a whole is their monetization. Most comic reader apps offer plenty of free chapters and stories for people to read. However, seemingly taking a book out of mobile games, most comic reader apps make use of a premium currency that you need to buy with real money to unlock chapters of a story. Essentially, for some stories, usually the most popular ones, if you wanted to keep reading another chapter of that story you were originally reading for free, you are going to have to now start paying money for each chapter. This is how a lot of these apps make their money. Now, I don't need to tell you that this can be a bit of a pain sometimes, especially if you were originally reading that story for free. But I kind of get the idea behind this method. Essentially, you are given a sampling of the story. If you enjoy the story, you'll keep buying more chapters for it after you get your sample. Then, over time, you'll incrementally be paying what would have been the full cost of a full physical or ebook version of whatever you are reading. However, we also have to consider Webtoons' typical readership. What do regular Webtoons readers think about all of this monetization? Surprisingly, at least based off of my field research, most of them are okay with it if they know that the authors are being properly compensated from it. Like any sort of creator-audience relationship, readers care about the well-being of their authors and want to know if they are being properly compensated off of this monetization. After all, we're here for their stories.
It was something that I could do. I could do without a barrier.
So it's something that's almost like distinctly yours, in a way.
Yeah, in a way, like there was nothing, I didn't have to follow someone else's rules. I didn't have to follow someone else's guidelines. I didn't have to use someone else's characters or use someone else's story. I could write the concept myself. I could develop the characters myself. I could develop the style myself, the colors. It was something that I had autonomy over and had control over. And yeah, I wasn't restricted.
The issue is then that audiences don't necessarily know if creators are being properly compensated. For example, app-curated stories, because of the way the app holds the story license, the creators are technically subject to the whims of the app. This includes the company determining their pay cut, choosing their publishing schedule, and even how long a series is allowed to go on for. Moreover, sometimes these conditions can change, like a series abruptly getting cut short. Meanwhile, income for creator-curated stories, which rely on audience interaction, can be a little unreliable at times, as they're up to the whims of the audience rather than a specific steady income. Although, Quinn Arthur makes a good point that this is done more out of necessity than anything.
I have heard of the monetization. You do need to have a certain follower amount in order to do that, and that makes sense. They want to make sure, like, if you're going to start making money and having people pay money, that you've got genuine, real people behind the screen. You're not just going and making bot accounts that just go and spam your likes and spam your readers and generate, a vicious circle of likes and shares and income. But
With all this in mind, what are we to make of this? Generally speaking, yes, apps like Webtoon and To Pass make it far more accessible to publish your own works and make money from it. The power to publish, at least initially, lies in the hands of the creator, not any arbitrary force. However, because of the way apps like Webtoon operate, even with their excessive monetization, it is difficult for authors to reliably earn from the stories that they have on these apps. the power over the stories is very much in the hands of Webtoon and other respective apps, not in the author. It's a power dynamic that exponentially favors the company, not the creator. In a way, this is unlike traditional publishing, where the author is very much in control of how their work is published once working with a publisher. It's actually beginning that author-publisher relationship in the first place that people tend to find most daunting. But once the manuscript is acquired from the author gets their pay right there and then, with the publisher now responsible for making ends meet. Now, this is not to say that Webtoon and apps like it are completely infeasible ways for authors and creators to publish their works. There actually appear to be great avenues for new creators just trying to get eyes on their comics, and then continue building from there, whether it be from their own personal marketing or through donation apps like Ko-fi or Patreon.
And I'm pretty excited moving forward with production and publishing. Like, I still would love to use Tapas as a medium. I am looking into things like Webtoon. I am looking into, like I said, even just hosting on my own website, just links to that just open up Imager gallery files that have the large files.
Ever considered Patreon?
I've considered Patreon. I haven't been able to quite figure out how to work Patreon for a comic series.
Publishing, no matter what medium you publish through, is always looking for fresh new faces and ideas. And I think it's great that new avenues like Webtoon are opening up for potential new creators to publish, learn, and grow. But I also think it's important for both creators and readers alike to understand the caveats and potential pitfalls of working on some of these programs, just as it is to highlight their uses. After all, there's always a human behind the stories we create. Isn't it fair that they're cared for too? Just a thought.
I think, honestly, the earliest exposure I had was the Bionicle comics that would come with the little Lego magazine.
Oh, I
You remember those?
Tons of those.
Oh my god. And like, even looking back, like, killer artwork. Like, whoever they actually hired to do that, like, I kind of want to see if I can find them online, like the actual full series, and pull them up.
Part of me wonders how they got them in so many sets.
Right? Like, that's a lot of work in such a short period of time.
Like, that must have been at least half the price of the Bionicle itself.
Oh, for sure. Like, between Bionicle and Warhammer, it's this, like, huge, extensive lore that we use to sell plastic toys.